Tonye, you've been in Shanghai, in China, for the past 12 years. Do you consider yourself a migrant?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So it's been 10 years in Shanghai, 2 years in another city, um, another Chinese city before we moved to Shanghai. And then we were 4 years in Bahrain in the Middle East. Do I regard myself as a migrant? I don't, because like literally in my head, I keep on like my thing is I'm a trailing spouse. That's a very nice name. I'm a trailing spouse. So a trailing spouse is somebody whose husband or whose partner works and you just trail along. So migrant, um, no, I don't. No, I haven't really thought of that word. No, I haven't.
I'm wondering how easy, difficult was it um, settling into the Bahrain society compared to Chinese society? Did you find that you had to adapt? Tell me about that experience of integrating as an outsider with cultural differences, food differences, that sense of community.
Mm. So I always said that I am so lucky that when we moved the first time out of South Africa, and that was um, we left South Africa 17 years ago, and so Bahrain was our first country, and of course it's in the Middle East, very different, and literally if it wasn't that I had to self-talk and say you need to go with an open mind, I think that's so important, and that helped just immediately landing in Bahrain and seeing that the houses are the same color as the sand. It's like this whole desert vibe and I'm just like, ooh, open mind, like this is your new home, this is your new home. I think that has helped a lot, like being open minded. But then coming from Bahrain, then moving to Lesotho, after Bahrain moving to Lesotho, and then from Lesotho coming to China, I always tell people when people arrive here for the first time, I say to them, it's like landing on a different planet, hey. And then people are like, yeah. And so it's a totally different. China is such a different environment and country, and again, it's about you
Mm.
being open-minded. Um, we lived in a smaller city when we first came to China, which has about 5 million people. And then after 2 years, we moved to Shanghai, which is a city of, oh, my husband's going to kill me because he's a geography teacher and he always, I get my numbers wrong. But like, I think in Shanghai, there's something like 50 million people, but like a lot of people. So the 5 million little city that we were in before was like coming to Shanghai. That year is where I felt like lonely. Being in this massive city,
Mm.
that's the first time ever in all the years that we've been gone from home, was the loneliness because it's such a huge city and because people here are only, everybody is living their lives and everybody's busy. So you literally have to start from scratch. And I was just at a school last week where um, we were invited to come and talk about, coming to Shanghai for the first time and what we've learned. And then I was saying, if it wasn't for the school where my husband was teaching and where my daughter went to school, there was this lovely lady called Moira from the UK, and she was the parent liaison officer, and it was Moira who welcomed new parents, and she would take us on little, excursions, take us on a bus tour, show us where the hospitals are, show us where the shops are, what we needed. And that, if it wasn't for that kind of experience where you are sort of being led, on how
Mm.
to familiarize yourself with the city. And so I think that is why it's so important. Like after being here for about 10 years in Shanghai, um, we love our family. We love welcoming people here because we know that feeling of how different it is. So we don't mind picking up
Mm,
people at the airport, taking them to their hotels or wherever they need to be, or take them out, because we understand that you need connection, because this is not a city where you can connect that easily.
mm. Talk to me about connecting, because you are literally a stranger in a foreign country and you have to adapt to the
Mm.
existing circumstances. Has it been easy building a sense of community, because your family roots are in Africa, and now you have to, the onus is on you to integrate? And if you weren't so open-minded, do you think it would have been harder for you to embrace all these differences and diversity?
I think it would have been harder. I've experienced people visiting us over the years, just as visitors, not to move here, and the comments that are being given about here and the people, and I'm just like, you don't know, people take things at face value. But I totally feel like once you are
Mm,
here, you get to love the city, you get to love this country. And so when people say strange things or negative things, you sort of like want to like, hey, this is not the way that it is. And so
mm,
the thing for us was, the only thing was that I was raising a daughter, right? And of course there's not a lot of black people around here, and so I literally had to go look for black South Africans because I needed my daughter to be familiar with her people. And
mm,
I literally found this number of wonderful young South African black girls who just, we embraced them and they embraced us, like this was their home. We started a book club and we focused on South African books, and we would get together once a month at Starbucks and talk about books, and we would invite them over for supper, and because I really wanted that connection, especially for my child, to have that connection to home. I
mm,
think since we moved from the beginning, from the Middle East, I always try to maintain that connection, whether it was through family. But the question came up again last week, like, how do you stay connected with your country? And my connection is food. And I was telling the children about, at Easter I would make pickle fish and hot cross buns, and Christmas there will be trifle, and I actually asked the kids and I said, "Oh, who knows what trifle is?" And they actually put up their hands. But I, I felt like food was the connection that I could show my child, the connection to home, and not
mm,
just the food, not just the making and the baking of the food, but telling her the history of it, explaining to her where pickle fish comes from, because that has a unique history to
mm,
where we come from. And sharing family memories around the Christmas table and what we used to eat for Christmas. And so for her, she would start identifying, like, you couldn't skip, like, on all the years that we've gone, haven't skipped an Easter. This is going to be the first year because she's not here, but haven't skipped an Easter. Or making, special meals for special occasions, because that is the way that we connect to home. So I think my
mm.
it's always been food. Yeah.
Have you found that you had to create your own support, emotional support system, so that it wouldn't be so hard to have maintain your identity in this metropolis on the one hand, but also a foreign culture? Or have
Mm.
you now started to embrace Chinese culture, for example? I'm thinking, do you celebrate the Chinese New Year? Are there certain customs that you've integrated into your family life?
We We haven't really integrated specific customs or part of the culture, but we are very respectful of it. We are, when it comes to Chinese New Year, we would put, there's certain writings that you put on your door, on your front door. We are very respectful of the Chinese culture. Because our daughters also, like, because she learned the language at school, she's been taught a lot about the history of the culture and cultural events and so forth. And when it's a certain cultural event happening, you speak, you congratulate people, whether you're in the taxi, you say Xin Yan Kuai La for Happy New Year. So for me, it's very important to be respectful. You don't have to adopt or integrate that culture into your family. It's what you
Mm.
want, but I think it's very important to be respectful of it. And when you were saying about like finding your emotional support group, it takes a while because,
Support system.
yeah, so it's very difficult to find um, people like you, because I think I find myself sometimes in spaces where I'm not very comfortable and I don't feel I can easily connect with people. So you really have to know yourself first and who you are before you can connect with other people. And so I found, and also because we have such a transient expat community, so people come in for a couple of years, they leave, and so there's this constant moving in and out. So even friendships or
Mm.
networks, it never stays the same, it always changes. And so I'm at the point now where I'm 55. I feel like I cannot do friendships anymore. But the people that I do have in my life, like the friends that I have here, are people that I've been connected with for a long time. The people who have left, I'm
Mm.
still connected to. And so when you do connect, you make deep connections. And that lasts a lifetime. Doesn't matter where people move to.
Do you find that when you were in Dubai and now in China, that there's a natural gravitation towards South Africans?
No.
Or are you doing it because you want to connect, because you want a reminder of home?
Yeah, no, I don't gravitate to South Africans. I'm very honest. That is not the purpose of why we do what we do. Um, we move from country to country and we live in different places because we want to experience the culture and meet different people and meet different people from different countries.
Mm.
Yes, we always, like here in Shanghai, there's a very big South African community, and every few months there's a South African braai or there's a South African quiz night, and we always make an effort to go and attend, and we love it. But we don't consciously go out and say, oh, we want to make South African friends. If we do meet people that is more like we are, great, but it doesn't mean
Mm.
that all South Africans are, are friends. And I don't think that's a purpose for us.
Mm.
That we don't gravitate towards only people from our own country. We gravitate to people who are interesting and that we can have good conversations with and that we can connect with.
Mm. Have you found incidences of discrimination because you're a foreigner, not necessarily because you're black?
Hmm.
And how have you dealt with that?
I'm going to be very honest. There were times where it was very infuriating because we lived in a smaller city before we came to Shanghai. It was very difficult, but we found it very interesting what people were interested in. And then one day, a Chinese friend of mine said that you must remember, every time somebody new moves into a town, right? Everybody comes out to
Mm.
look and see whether it is a Chinese person or whether it's a foreigner. So I really loved her explanation to me because I was like, why are people looking and why are, and she was like, no, that's part of who the people are here.
Mm.
So they are
Mm.
curious, they look, and we have especially here in Shanghai, when you're on a train or in a public place, then and people stare, you will just you will smile. And it's amazing how when you smile that you get that in return. And then you say, hi, how are you? And you can speak English. And what I love is that people love to try to speak English. My Chinese is so bad, like I can, and I feel so guilty about it. But when I say, hey, how are you? And people can say they are well and they ask me how I am, that is that's awesome. That's amazing. So yeah.
You are probably aware of President Donald Trump's invitation to white Afrikaners in South Africa to apply for refugee status. And about 70,000 have apparently, allegedly indicated that they would consider resettling in the USA. But with that comes so many differences and so many challenges. But apart from that invitation, there are more and more South Africans, and not only just South Africans, people wanting to explore, enrich their lives, different cultures, thinking of leaving their home countries for whatever reason. What would some of the pieces of advice be that you'd want to share with them? What should they be cognizant of? What should they keep in mind in terms of planning, in terms of allowing time, how to decide where to go? What about your children and their exposure and their integration? And just talk us through some of the stuff that you think one should consider when you decide, I actually want to move, no matter where you are in the world.
Yeah, true. I think for us, the plan was never immigrating. It was never like, oh, we're going to leave this country forever and go live in another country. For us, it was about the experience and experiencing different countries and cultures. And so even with that, like I it's the same thing, because like here we are 12 years later and we're still living in China. And so basically this is our second home. This is our daughter's, she calls this home. But we always have it in the back of our mind that South Africa is home. This is where we're going to go back to. So I think it's a lot to do with, because it's not, I think it's not that easy just to pack up and leave. I think there's a lot of I was reading the other day on there's a group in another country. It's not China, it's not South Africa, but it's also people who are immigrating, South Africans immigrating to another country. And somebody was saying how
Mm.
desperately lonely and sad, and like she's just so unhappy in this new country that she immigrated to. And the responses to this person was, you know what, if this is not for you, you need to go back home. I think people, we build up this picture of what we think it's supposed to, but we must always remember we are entering as guests. We are always a guest. We are not from that country. So we also need to remember that we are a guest, whether you are immigrating or you're just moving to go work there, you are a guest. You cannot come and say, but in my country, we do this and da 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 da. There are
Mhm.
certain things that you need to be very conscious of. And that is where respect comes in. Respect for the country that you're in, respect for the culture and the people. You might not agree with everything that they do, but you need to be respectful, because you are a guest in their country. You are not from there, you were not born there, you don't understand it fully, how it is to be a person of that country. And I find it very interesting sometimes when I see South Africans on social media making very derogatory statements about a country that they are living in that is not South Africa. We must remember everywhere is not South Africa. South Africa is unique, just like any other country is unique. And I think that is what people need to be very conscious of. When you go as a guest, and you go and you need to adapt. people do not adapt to you, you need to adapt to the country that you are in. Nobody owes you anything because you came to live in their country.